Should we really trust the new Eridu Defense Force? I feel like it's a pretty solid question to ask, given that new Eridu often seems to strive with its own issues, following around corruption, moral dilemmas, and even borderline dystopian corporate interventions, all of which makes it feel increasingly harder to trust any sort of governing force at this point. So what would make the NEDF any different? Before we go into conspiracy mode, let me get you up to speed. My name is Sekai Samurai, and today we are hitting on just who the new Eridu Defense Force really is. From the armored security guards to even the deeper, more advanced units such as Obol Squad, and the moral complexity that often comes with a massive military faction. As a final heads up, also make sure to check out our lore shorts, as we just got done covering the lore on the new foot model, mechanic. She's a mechanic of Obol Squad. Anyways, back to the video. Before New Eridu was known as the last bastion of humanity, we can begin our story all the way back towards the old capital, where the then named Eridu Defense Force was already well versed in fighting endlessly against the Hollows. As these massive voids of doom swallowed up the world, these men and women would still stand tall and battling all over the nation, helplessly fighting for survival, possibly all the way up until finally fending off at their own home. Unsure of whether today or tomorrow would cause another terrifying blow to their defenses. And while humanity did make a valiant cause, almost out of nowhere, roughly somewhere around 10 to 12 years or so ago, the Hollow Zero event would occur, and with it, most of the city would become devoured in what would seem like a blink of an eye. Not only was an ungodly amount of unsuspecting families and scientists near instantly destroyed within its wakes, but possibly well over tens of thousands of armed Defense Force units would absolutely be eviscerated. Nearly every single division and task force that was under the military guard was gone. Radios that were once full of echoing comms and support all at once had fell silent. And with that, only one single division had survived. This is the Obsidian Division, and they kick-started everything into effect, pushing ragtag teams to recruits and turning them into fierce armed soldiers who could actually stand brave once again. In fact, the sole reason the new Eridu Defense Force even survived was because of them, with Obsidian being well known for its ruthless training tactics and fantastic adaptation skills, being able to work and fight on in no matter the most hostile or brutal environment that you put them in. While other divisions would crush and break during the Hollow Zero event, Obsidian would focus on strategic retreats, secure containment protocols, and their fast reaction time, while other divisions would abandon orders, ditch their chains of command, or even going as far as to go AWOL. Obsidian saw massive importance on preserving the structure and intelligence of their own network, with Obol, Chartus, Nocte, and Impera being the key squads during this time, who even took the added notion to expand and adapt upon their rules, rather than living and dying by them. With these sharp tactics, they would build a strong new empire once more. With nowadays, the Hollow events feel much more in control, with support teams and science squads keeping incredibly tight tabs on all existing and even newly existing Hollows happening in the city, which is a damn good reason to see these guys as heroes. I mean, look at Trigger. She gave her own eyesight and lives day by day with survivor's guilt on what had happened to her team. Soldier 11, while tight-lipped, obviously has experienced a gruesome number of events while purging zones, as well as poor Anby, living with severe amnesia, traumatic damage, and emotional imbalances due to what had happened to her in the rest of Silver Squad. But speaking of Silver Squad, not everything about the new Eridu Defense Force is as clean as they may seem. First of all, the NEDF lives by a very strict protocol on whether or not a hollow point can be controlled, where if attempts are seen as failure at halting progress, otherwise violent actions could be met in return, not just on ethereals, but on possibly even potential victims caught in the crossfire as well. Brutality, a lack of care with the lives of civilians, and an absurdly high rate of defector groups are all becoming more and more of a rampant issue in these last few years. A good example is these quote-unquote rebel soldiers that we seem to run into all the time. They're not just a random enemy faction or just some throwaway rejects from the army. Many of these units seem incredibly well trained, Captains here have huge ego parades. There's armored units who have control of giant mechanized machines, and they often seem to be in high supply whenever the proxy is doing any mission centered around involving the Defense Force. This strange rate of defects could be pointing to a high level of corruption occurring within the military itself, which possibly, and hear me out, this is the theory, could be coming from paid off squads of soldiers who are being swayed away by political parties. Or, in one of my favorite theories, the corpo route. Some people, including myself, think that huge city corporations, like the ones within TOPS, are totally directing funding and misguiding operations in the chase for profit. As companies such as the infamous Ports Lumix, which you can find my guide of them right here on my channel, would absolutely be more than happy to drop money on anything backing their interests. Civilian casualties or not, they do not care. Speaking of corporations and political terror, take a look at Anby. Replica Soldiers are a whole different level when it comes to trying to theorize on what directly their reasoning really is. Soldier 0, Soldier 11, Twiggy, all of them have been manufactured in some sort of grand plot to make the ideal super soldier, someone that can be pushed into suicide missions, and even more so, possibly striving to make them so powerful that even Hashimi Miyabi could become outmatched. That's so much power, and while we may argue that sacrifices should be made and that using clones instead of real people sounds justified, what we see with the horrors forced upon Anby and her team paints an utterly disturbing view on how human higher-ups in the Defense Force could really be. But what do you think? Is the Defense Force really what New Eridu needs for its own survival? Or are they just another cog in the machine, all in the long-time grand plan for a city takeover by corporations? Well, let me know what you think below, and make sure to become a Lore Samurai today and hit that subscribe button. Guys, I want to hear all of your theories down there as well, and plus, if you want to chat, make sure to come check out our lore-themed Discord server as well, with lore discussion sections, art channels, and even active voice channels here. Link below for more. Anyways, everyone, if you want to see more like this, let me know, and I shall see you all in the next video. Samurai out.